Well, August is already proving to be quite an intense month. So today I wanted to take a look at President Biden's chart because looking at world leaders' charts is important for getting an idea of generally of future events that may happen since presidents and prime ministers they're making really big decisions for the countries they represent. And I looked at President Biden's chart, and let me tell you, there is some very interesting correlations with the USA chart. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. For those of you new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get all my videos. I do videos on the royal family, on world leaders like President Biden here, and also celebrities. And I also do monthly predictions. So make sure you hit that notification bell. Also, I am running a special discount for the month of August. Check down below for details. It's endless summer discount, 40% off if you use code name Thor. So let's go ahead and take a look at President Biden's chart. And of course, quick disclaimer, this reading is for entertainment purposes only, and I'm merely just speculating as to the energies in President Biden's chart. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. One of the things I wanted to tell you all about was, remember in the USA chart, the moon in the USA chart is right at the same exact degree as Ketu in President Biden's chart. So that's kind of an interesting correlation. They're at the exact same degrees. Now, it's like 6 degrees, and usually within a 3 degree orb of another planet is quite significant. So I find that quite interesting. And the reason why I bring this up is because remember, Saturn is going to start slowing down. Actually, it's going to start slowing down in September, but then it's going to be really slowing down in October. And by November 4th, Saturn is going to station. It's literally going to stand still right here in the sign of Aquarius at around 6 degrees. Okay. But let me tell you, for the whole month of October, it's literally going to be hanging out around this degree, like 7 and 6 degrees. So I find this quite significant. Now, remember, in the USA chart, Saturn going over the moon represents Sati Sati, which is a time of bad luck. I even talked about, this is a time of, like, we could say the Great Depression in a lot of ways. Maybe we're not seeing it in the news, but we're certainly feeling it in our pocketbooks. I mean, if you just think about, if you look at your life, the cost of living right now, the cost of food, it's really hard to get by right now, even though, the numbers on television might be telling us all sorts of different things. It might be telling us things are great. If you look at the quality of jobs right now, well, there's a lot of jobs that are low paying. I mean, wages have been pretty stagnant for a couple of decades, especially in the Western countries, especially since things like automation, AI are coming up, and of course, outsourcing of jobs that started in the 80s and 90s. So we have this kind of like steamroller effect of all these things happening. So we feel like we're really feeling it. By the way, I did hear the average American, like 40% of Americans don't have $400 in their bank account for an emergency. So that's pretty scary to think about. And why I'm bringing that up is I'm going to talk about that in just a moment with President Biden's chart. So, okay, so October is going to be totally significant. Okay, October, and then by November 4th, that's when that's the actual day. But remember, with these transits, it could be 30 days around, you could be within a 30-day orb of this date. Okay, so I mean, it could be October 15th. It could be, something like that. So keep that date in mind. I'm going to mark that even in my calendar, November 4th. That's the day where Saturn is stopping over the USA moon, and it's stopping over Ketu in President Biden's chart, which is super intense. Now, remember, let's talk about what Saturn is for President Biden, especially. Now, Saturn is generally, it does represent delays, it represents blockages, it represents coldness, it represents things stopping. So Saturn literally freezes things. It freezes things. It's known as austerity, scarcity, difficulty. So I mean, if you look at where it is in President Biden's chart, it's in the fourth house, and fourth house does represent things like home and homeland. And you could think about this, being the country, of course, the country that President Biden's from, and he's the president of the country. That's quite interesting. Also, take a look at this. Saturn is going to be aspecting the moon in President Biden's chart. Okay. And look, it happens to be his moon is it's at 7, it's almost at 8 degrees, but it's within that 3-degree orb. So it's almost this really sharp aspect. So that's really interesting to take note. Because remember, Saturn, it aspects 3 houses from itself, 7 houses from itself, and 10 houses from itself in Vedic astrology. So again, this theme of homeland difficulty. Now, if we take a look, Saturn actually rules the fourth house in President Biden's chart, but Ketu is usually, it usually represents cutting off. Okay, cutting off. It represents losses. It represents things that like a destabilizing effect, if you want to think about it. So if Saturn represents stability and going and just hanging out right over K2, there's like this instability that's happening. Okay. So could there be this instability we're seeing? Could there be instability in the homeland? Could there be some sort of difficulty happening in the homeland? Definitely. And also consider, and let me clean this up, so we don't get too stacked up with writing, but also consider the Mahadasha and Bhukti that President Biden is in right now. He's in Saturn, Mahadasha, Saturn, Bhukti. So everything, like Saturn is so strong for President Biden right now. Like Saturn, like when you're even in the planetary period of Saturn, it's like Saturn is just like, let's just say like multiply, let's like multiply it, like, the effects of Saturn is just multiplied. Okay. It's really a difficult time. Going over K2, there's instability. And remember, I always think of Saturn as the collective. Okay. When we're thinking about the collective, the everyman. So K2 in contact with that, the collective stability, there's some sort of loss of stability that's happening around that time. Now, also consider, let's look at the moon chart. Now, for those of you that are new to Vedic astrology, when you're over the age of 50, so 50 and up, you really want to take a look at your moon chart, okay? Because your moon chart actually starts, it starts having a stronger energy after the age of 50, okay? It's always active, but there's like an increased magnification of that chart, okay? So we also got to look at President Biden's moon chart. And so if we look at where Saturn's going to be, it's still going to be in Aquarius, obviously, even in the moon chart. And just so you all know, those of you that are new, the moon chart would just be making wherever the moon is in your chart would be making it the first house, and then second house, third house. That's what a moon chart is. So we just turn the moon into your lagna, okay? Or your ascendant sign. So you'll take a look at the Saturn is 11th from moon within President Biden's chart, and K2 is there. Now, 11th house. So we got two important significations here. We really want to look at what the fourth house means. We talked about that. Fourth house represents homeland, or represents stability. It even represents security, especially things like homeland security. Okay. That's what fourth house would represent. Well, what would 11th house represent? Okay. 11th house would represent things like, it's a money house, but it also represents things like the stock market. It represents just markets in general. It can represent communications. Okay. And it can represent politics as well. So political rallies. Okay. Political rallies. And it can also represent, I'm writing all over this. It can also represent the internet. Okay. So big networks, the internet. Okay. So what we can do is we can think, okay, so Saturn's going over K2 in the 11th from moon in President Biden's chart. Okay. What does 11th house represent? Because we want to look at the meaning and signification of that. Okay. There could be problems with the stock market around that time. There could be problems with Wall Street. There could be problems with the economy. And by the way, for some reason, this won't clean up. But there could be problems with Wall Street, the economy. There could be problems with the internet. Could there be, I've heard speculations from people of, you might have heard the speculation from people that people think there's going to be some sort of blackouts or something like that. Uh, well, with Ketu in the 11th house even represents electrical grids. So put that all in your mind. Fourth house and 11th house. These are the two interpretations we're getting. So remember, that's going to be peaking on November 4th, but the whole month of October is going to be this like it's literally just going to be hovering. It's almost going to be stopped. So you all also want to look in your personal charts and see where is Saturn going to be, and especially if it's over a planet, transiting Saturn's over a planet in your chart, it's going to show that there's a really intense energy happening because Saturn slows down almost to a stop the whole month of October. So that energy is strong. When Saturn goes direct, when it stations, it's like a powerful energy release. There's powerful karmas that are released during that time. So I expect really important and really just because we're seeing this confluence with President Biden's chart and the USA chart, I feel like there's a major event happening around that time. This fall, I feel like October, okay, could be the first week of November, but around that time frame, we could have what's known as an October surprise. So I want to let you all know what's going on. That there's a few charts that are confirming this, and there's a lot of other astrologers feeling like something's up about October. A lot of personal readings I'm doing, it seems like October is very intense. So it's something to be aware of. And of course, the motto is just prepare. Get yourself ready. Hopefully nothing happens. If nothing happens, then it's all good, right? So thank you all for watching. Make sure you comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you think something's going to happen in October? Or do you think this is just, maybe we're just we keep on thinking something's going to happen and it's just going to be more of the same? Let me know down below. Thank you. And I will see you in the next video.